have anything funny to say.
Wanna make that paper, wanna make that now. This is the affiliate marketing show. Wanna make that paper, wanna make that now.
What is up, everybody? This is Josh coming to you from another episode of the Affiliate Marketing Show. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest affiliate news as well as future episodes. I'm Josh from OfferVault.com, the industry's leading aggregator of affiliate networks and offers all things affiliate marketing. We also have CEO of Ringba, Adam Young, as well as Harrison Gevirtz and Amanda Farris, CEO and founder of LinkUnite, the most badass organization of women executives in the marketing and tech industry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from Las Vegas. Affiliate Summit West was this past week, and we have a lot to talk about. I got to meet Amanda for the first time, and Amanda, I know that LinkUnite held an event with some of the members of your organization. Why don't you tell us about the trade show, how it was for you, and how your event went down?
Yeah, absolutely. The show was huge. So we're back to 2017 numbers. So we had a really good show in terms of just finding new contacts, connecting with partners, and attending other people's happy hours. We were lucky enough to have Adam host us and sponsor with Diablo and Ringba and a few other people on site to do a happy hour for the ladies of the industry. So we pulled together some of the highest, VP, director level up ladies in the industry to sort of network and really just have some face time going into 2023 to figure out, what we can work on together in the new year.
Yeah, and did you guys
Amanda,
have
I'm missing
Adam, yeah, go ahead, Adam.
I'm missing all my underwear from my hotel suite that we loaned you guys. I'm not sure what happened, but if you could ship that back to me, I'd really appreciate it.
No guarantees.
Amanda, did you guys have a table or a booth this year? I think you did, or did you not?
We did not. We actually just focused
okay.
on the happy hour. So we tend to do more of just like the in-person, face-to-face events off-site at those types of events that are that large. Some of the smaller shows we will do. Typically, we do meeting rooms, but we did not exhibit at the show. We really focused on walking around and finding everybody because it's sort of amazing, the forum.
Yeah, Adam, I'd ask you if you had a booth, but I think anybody at the show would have seen your skyscraper that was the Ringba booth. Can you tell us about the show, how it was for Ringba? And I know you actually hosted a mastermind that I heard a lot of great stuff from the attendees as well as you guys in terms of its success. So I'd love to hear a little bit about all that.
Yeah, so we did host a mastermind. It was fantastic. And the topic of the mastermind was how to scale any business by 10x. And so we had some really great participants in that. And then maybe not surprisingly, but the Q&A went on for almost an hour. And so I think the attendees of that event were really excited and focused on growing their businesses. And it went very well. So I'm really looking forward to hosting more of those around trade shows and some other independent events that we're working on this year. And then also, as far as Affiliate Summit goes, this was the biggest Affiliate Summit that has ever happened. The attendees—
They had record numbers.
Yeah, it was like 6,500 people. And I don't love the location of the forums, but I will say this about it. There is no restaurant or bar in the forums. And so all of the attendees actually end up hanging out in the exhibit hall. And so it was absolutely packed the entire time. And so our skyscraper presence, as you called it, worked out really well. And thankfully, you could see the skyscraper from anywhere in the exhibit hall. But it was really cool to meet with our clients and see new faces and meet people that I've just been chatting with on the internet for years in person. And so I think it was a really good turnout. And I'm very excited for the next Affiliate Summit in Vegas because I think trade shows are back in full swing. They were really productive. And I think we got a lot out of it. So it was very good.
Can we touch on that mastermind and the dinner you hosted? I'm sure you don't want to give too much away because that's the whole reason why people should attend it. But can you talk about, just from a bird's eye view, what were some of the topics you guys covered and why was it so impactful on those that were there?
So I think for really successful business leaders, and this event had a minimum requirement of being a millionaire to go to it. And so everyone in the room had already had an established business, and they were already doing a lot of volume. I think one of the attendees was even doing over 100 million a year in volume. And so the important thing about an event like this, and I think the interesting thing is people think they're going to learn about tactics at an event like this, like how to run your ads, or what specific tweaks you can make to what you're doing to make it more successful. And that's the opposite of what I actually taught at this event. And so we focused on the strategy to grow your business. And the core of that strategy to grow your business to massive scale is figuring out what your cause is and what your why is. So without giving away too much here, because I know people paid a lot of money to be there, but I think it's really important that people determine what their why is. And it can't be about money. I think if your why is about money, you're really never going to get that successful. You might make $1 million or something, but you're going to get burnt out. And so the second tier of the why is personal or family reasons, like you want to support your kids, send them to college, like take care of your family. And those are great reasons, and they can be part of your stack. But again, those reasons are not going to elevate you to unlimited scale and really prevent burnout. And so the only way to really elevate your business to unlimited scale is to find a why that moves you, essentially a cause that is bigger than yourself. And for instance, Ringba's cause is to help as many entrepreneurs as possible grow their business and be successful. And so our cause is bigger than ourselves. It's a servant cause, and we get to see the results of that in a really big way. And so by focusing on a cause like that, your motivation is intrinsic. Like, it doesn't matter how many hours of the day you work, because everything you're doing is part of a mission that is fulfilling. And so I highly recommend to entrepreneurs, even in the affiliate marketing space, to find out what their cause is and their personal motivation is for their business, and to make that bigger than themselves. And the moment you find a cause that is bigger than yourself, you can change the world, frankly. And so this is one of the reasons why I really love Amanda Farris's cause at LinkUnite. And it's one of the reasons why when we got hit up to sponsor their event, my response was, whatever the biggest one is, we'll just take it. Is because her cause is exactly that. It is bigger than herself. It is not about money. It is not about something personal. It is about changing an industry and providing opportunities for women to become successful, and providing a group of people to help lift them up towards that cause. And so this is also an amazing cause, and a really great one, which means that she can leverage that cause to grow her organization as big as she wants, and can grow a business as big as she wants, because there are no limits to the impact of that cause. So if an entrepreneur doesn't have one of those, at some point they're going to burn out, or they're going to hit a glass ceiling. It also makes it really hard to recruit. Like, if you don't have a cause that you believe in, you are not going to be able to recruit the highest level talent possible, because the highest level talent possible will not take a job that they do not believe in, because they have unlimited opportunities, right? Like a Googler, for instance, is not going to go work for you and leave this amazing job at Google unless you have this incredible mission to follow. And so having that incredible mission is essentially the key to growth in business. And it's something that at Ringba we focus a lot on. And I do believe that it is the reason for our success.
I want to piggyback right off of that and go to Harrison, followed by Amanda. And I want to know what your guys' why is. What is your goal from living and working and doing everything you do? Harrison, let's go to you first.
I think a generic answer, because I'm pretty busy with a bunch of different things, is I genuinely, my why is to build. I love to see things, grow from zero to something at scale. Seeing that happen and seeing the growth that occurs with those involved in that building really brings me joy and happiness. So Adam mentioned it. If you just want to make money, money's cool. It's a great way to keep score, I say, but that's not really what it's all about. It's seeing that growth, and then the development of those that you're building with, that really gets me going and keeps me excited about doing what I do every day.
Amanda, what is your why?
Why is pretty simplistic. It's a little altruistic, but obviously I would say my goal is to change the world, or in one way or another collaborate to change the world. So similar to what Harrison says, growth is absolutely fundamental. And so when you watch really beautiful souls and really great people come together, it's amazing what they can achieve in a very small amount of time when given the opportunity to do so. So facilitating, these types of relationships, that's really what my why is, as I love watching brilliant people come together and just watching where they grow, and what they, come up with. This industry, more than any other, I would say changes every, 6 months to 18 months or so, with new technology, new people. And that's, I think, my favorite part, is just seeing kind of what happens over very organic relationships.
So, newsflash, everybody, Adam and Harrison were not at the affiliate ball this year. I know we all were crossing our fingers, but Amanda, I know you and some of your ladies were, and I think a few of you were celebrating an AFI award. Can you tell us what the party was like and who won and all that good stuff?
Absolutely, yes. We had quite a few women win. This has actually been, last year and this year, there's been more female winners than there ever have been before. So luckily, back in May, I was honored by, receiving one. I know our Ringba fellows have also won in the past as well. But the girls this year were Susanna Rayburn, Debbie Conrad, and Tina Dixon all won. And so the party was actually a lot larger than I anticipated. I am not one for the clubs anymore in my life, but I did go to celebrate the women and was front row screaming, hooting, and hollering. We brought the entire cheering crowd. So pretty much every single human that was at the happy hour was able to make it over there and really just support the ladies. And, watching their smiles and their excitement was worth its weight in gold.
And you said you won one recently. When was that again?
I did May of last year, myself.
May of last year. And were you there to receive your award? I'm just curious.
I was there to see. Yes, you have to be present.
Cool.
Look, Josh, we were at this year's affiliate ball in spirit.
Yeah, I thought I did see your spirit there. I was like, this spirit feels familiar.
Amanda,
all right.
I'm going to have to go ahead and publicly disagree with you. You do not have to be there.
That's the trade
secret. No.
So
he
guys,
tried hard. He tried hard. He said if I showed up, I could present the AFI Awards and he would give me a mic and just leave me on stage. I was so close, but then sushi. Yeah.
No, I think we may be getting
It was
closer.
great sushi.
We may be getting closer to a Adam/Harrison appearance in the near future. Hopefully, we can all be graced with their presence.
He's going to have to negotiate with our agent, based on what he said last time. I prefer orange M&Ms only, exclusively. Right. So if I can get a bucket of orange M&Ms, I'm going to need to review the rider, but we'll see. We might show up one day.
Maybe.
Hey, Amanda, I have a question for you. I guess I'll go right into it. I was waiting for you to be like, yeah, Josh, what is it? Okay, Amanda, how many marketing partners is too many? And this is going to take us into our next topic here. And according to the FCC, it's about 5,000. And an article that we saw is basically stating that if you're going to list your marketing partners in terms of reaching out to consumers, etc., you can't do it with a hyperlink. You actually need to list them by name. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this article to get everybody caught up to speed here, and then we'll jump right into it. But for years, lead generators have obtained telephone numbers for their clients to call by obtaining the consumer's consent to receive calls from certain entities specifically identified by the lead generator. A typical model uses language that asks the consumer's consent via a checkbox or otherwise to receive marketing calls from a few of the lead generator's marketing partners named in the consent request. Now, sometimes the marketing partners list has several dozens, hundreds, or thousands of names, which one might ask, how many names on the marketing partners list is too many to evidence meaningful consent by the consumer to receive calls or text? As I mentioned, the FCC thinks that it's 5,329, but really just over 5,000. So I just want to open up the floor and go around the table here. In your eyes, guys, do you think not being able to have a hyperlink is not enough of a qualification to give consent to these marketing partners to reach out? Obviously, if there's 5,000 of them, that's going to be pretty hard to sneak in each individual name of the marketing partner itself. So what are your thoughts on this this update by the FCC. Let's start with you, Harrison.
You know, I would first and foremost say everyone needs to get their own lawyer. Okay. But, you know, simply put, that's a large number, and I have no clue how the government got to that number. But the biggest issue I see in this is really when there's so many people in that marketing chain, you really just have to protect yourself as an advertiser, as an agency, wherever you stand in that chain. And so make sure that you have a really ironclad indemnification agreement. Because we've seen this before, Adam, when someone buys a call and that call was bought from somebody else, and somebody else. So the disclosure gets completely like mauled up anyways, or isn't even shown. You know, and these people don't have a strong indemnification clause, and they end up holding the bag for something they had nothing to do with. So, you know, this article is talking about it from a true regulatory perspective, but the way I see it is you have to protect yourself. The number of marketing partners is truly, in my opinion, not as relevant as just making sure you have that indemnification clause, because if you don't, you're going to get burned to the ground eventually one day. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, and it specifically was talking about this past month in December, how the FCC issued an order to crack down on suspected illegal robocalls made by Earth Access related to student loans and related entities responsible for making approximately 40% of all student loan robocalls to consumers in October. Adam, what was your main takeaway from this article? And once again, what's your vibe on the whole marketing partners hyperlink or actually listing them individually?
Well, you know, we've talked about some of the FTC and FCC rules before and guidelines. And when I read this article, it strikes me that the FCC is going to change how they think about this, so that consumers who are consenting know exactly who they're consenting to. And I think the reality is 5,000 is going to be a ridiculous number compared to what the guidelines are eventually going to come down to. And I think based on what I've seen, what the government's really going to want is they're going to want a consumer to be able to read all of the marketing partners right in the consent language when they're submitting the form. And so similar to SMS consent, where you're literally checking a box that says, I'm willing to receive automated messages, I think the government is going to crack down eventually on anyone who doesn't disclose their marketing partners between the form and the button. And so having 5,000 just isn't going to be feasible. And so I think advertisers are really going to have to reduce the amount of marketing partners that they're listing in these programs, or make specific pages for each marketing partner or a group of partners so that consumers can see who is actually going to reach out to them. Because, I mean, even as a marketer, and I do love marketing, having 5,000 names on a list is impossible for a consumer to go through and understand who is reaching out to them and whether or not that's someone they've consented to. And so this,
how do you know which out of 5,000 it is? Exactly,
right? Like, and there's no way, like, you're not going to keep, as a consumer, you're not going to go back and check that list repeatedly. And so having 5,000 marketing partners is ridiculous. And then on top of that, when you have 5,000 marketing partners, how in the hell are you going to police all those marketing partners and figure out who's following the rules, who's not following the rules, who's following your marketing guidelines, and where bad behavior is coming from? So to me, having a third-party marketing page with hundreds or thousands of names on it is not going to be sufficient long-term. And my assumption, and get your own lawyers, is that that number is going to be drastically reduced, or that people are going to have to make numerous consumer capture pages with forms on them so that they can correctly identify the marketing partner to the consumer at the time of consent. That's what I think this is all going to end up being.
Now, what happens if someone tries to do like a little workaround and they like set up some sort of LLC as an agency that has multiple marketing partners underneath it? Would they be able to just list the agency itself as the marketing partner? Or do you think there's multiple ways to poke holes through that if someone was trying to do a quick fix?
That sounds like a hole that will be be adjust. I don't think that's going to work, because the argument from the government would be, okay, so who are their marketing partners? And they need to be transparently included in this disclosure as well.
Yeah, I think that'll just crush the marketing company, because the government's literally just going to say, well, you use this LLC to shield the marketing partners so they could engage in potential bad behavior, and you didn't have to disclose to consumers who the actual marketing partner was. And to Harrison's point, I think, and I've seen this happen before, to marketers, they don't have good legal, and so they don't have good agreements, and then that lack of legal agreement when a complaint happens, or a TCPA complaint or something bad happens, leaves many people in the value chain exposed. And so having the good indemnification clauses, clearly defined agreements, will save an affiliate marketer or an aggregator or an advertiser from running into these issues. And then those agreements should specifically outline who is at fault if an issue happens. And so, like Harrison said, I've seen it where we have customers end up holding the bag on gigantic settlements, and they had nothing to do with the negotiation of the settlement, but their legal wasn't good. And so,
or they never read the contract. They just signed where the line was
Yeah.
dotted. And I'm guilty of this. We've all done it. We've learned lessons and never done that again. Sometimes it's worth the $500 or $1,000 to pay someone to read that agreement.
Yeah, a lawyer should review every agreement, every marketing agreement, every IO. As an affiliate, you cannot just accept the IO or agreement that a network or advertiser gives you. You just simply cannot. You have to have it reviewed, and you have to have standard language that goes in there that protects you from these kinds of situations, or you're going to end up holding the bag on settlements that you can't even negotiate yourself.
So I have a question for Amanda, actually. And, because I know you've been very involved in the lead side over the years. So do you have any suggestions or I guess suggestions, best way to put it, for like best practices for people that are selling leads or buying leads that are to be used for telemarketing, and ways to, I guess, monitor those relationships and kind of hold your marketing partners accountable to ensure compliance, with the laws, with everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to piggyback right off of what y'all said. Hire a lawyer. I think there's a theme here. You absolutely need legal in this industry. I think we've all watched things transpire over the last decade, but at least the last couple of years. There are several regulatory bodies that have really put a focus on our industry in particular, from calls to leads to everything. And I would say that if you are not using some sort of tracking system, it is absolutely necessary to be able to know who you are receiving data, or calls from, right? So you need that sub ID tracking. You need to understand where your stuff, is actually coming from, and then have documentation through legal contracts that say who is responsible should something happen. And recently, I will say, I was at a conference back in October in Nashville, and the FTC, the head of the FTC, I think her name is Lois Gressman, was on stage with Michelle Schuster, and they were going back and forth, particularly over the data side of this, saying, how many partners is too many partners? And it was watching two sides. You're literally watching a battle go down in real time. You have Lois saying that 5 to 7 is too many in terms of reselling a lead or a call. And now we're talking about an article that says 5,000 times. So there really is no consistency in the industry to really understand what is right and what is wrong, which is where that legal play comes into it. And as far as she was concerned, Lois, that is, was saying that if you didn't have direct consent to reach out for every particular offer, that they would consider that almost in violation of the trust or the confidence of that consumer. Where you have Michelle on the other side going, well, we think 3, 5, 7 is a respectable amount of times to sell a piece of information or a lead to a related offer if they've opted into it. But again, you can watch them in real time going after one another, and they're really essentially going after people who are abusing the robocall system, SMS, text messaging, things like that. But all of the other players get wrapped up in that, unfortunately, which is why the legal piece of it is so important, just in case you happen to get bundled up in a bad play.
Definitely.
To your point there, and I didn't go to that conference in October, but this is literally what I mentioned before, right? It sounds like that FTC representative is stating, 5 or 7's too many. It's too many if a consumer can't read the names of the marketing partners where they're giving consent. You can't hyperlink it out and hide 5,000 people. because
Consumer Harrison has never read 5,000 names in the privacy policy. How did they get to that number? What are they doing?
Harrison, I don't think that they actually have 5,000 marketing partners. I think what this article or what the marketers are probably doing is they're taking every company name they can find in the space and putting it on there so that if they want to sell that lead to someone else in the future that they don't currently have a relationship with, then they're like, oh yeah, see, we disclosed all 5, every lead buyer in the entire industry can buy it. And they're just updating that list as long as possible with every name. And so it wouldn't surprise me if that was a hustle and they didn't actually have open agreements with all 5,000 of those partners.
One thing I'd just like to tell you guys, the question I asked you, Amanda, was actually ChatGPT generated and not my own. I just figured I'd throw a curveball in there. So I asked ChatGPT to give me some questions for that article. When I first talked about it, that was my own brain, but I said, give me a question, and you answered it very well. So great work.
It would be nice if you would just do the prep work.
Oh, I did the prep work. That was just my one curveball in there. I've had this for a couple days, ready to go in my arsenal.
You guys, legal. It just has me thinking about my favorite case, Ratterman versus Pierre Fabre, USA.
Yes,
which leads us right to our next topic. Earlier this month, beauty brand Avene lost its motion to dismiss a case brought by a model over the use of her image on Avene's website. The model signed a publicity rights release with a production company called QuickFrame, but the license was for single use on Instagram only, not any other website. She then found her image on other websites and sued under New York's publicity rights statute, and her claim will go forward. I think this just ties into everything else we're talking about in a way. You got to read the fine print, especially when it comes to publicity. Amanda, have you guys ever personally had any issues with this in your marketing, or is there anything you can relate to from your experience in the industry?
I have not personally had any issues because I like lawyers. So I tend to run everything through legal counsel before going forward with anything. I love contracts. I like being able to make sure that things are clear and identifiable. So personally, I cannot speak to having this type of issue, but I can understand that, you know, it is hard when you are one individual to read through every line of a contract and understand what that really means, which is why it is so important. But you really have to understand what you're signing yourself up for. And I will say that in this industry, I've seen several people fall victim to this, where they think they have the right to use a particular image or an ad when in fact they do not. And the repercussions can be rather severe if you are running, you know, someone else's content without their, you know, permission or consent, so to say. So I'm sure Adam and Harrison have experience with this as well. I think Adam has a fun story related to his own image.
Yeah. So, you know, years ago, I was running a people search campaign, and I actually used my own image. And so what I did is I took a bunch of my own images and I put them on hotornot.com, if you remember what that is back in the day. And then I had the market tell me which image was the best one, because I would get, you know, thousands of hot or not, right? So I found one that got the highest rating, and then I used my own image that I pre-tested there in a Facebook ad. And that image was doing extremely well. I was making a lot of money, and affiliates started stealing my ads. And so what I would do is I would track down the affiliate that stole my ad, that used my actual face in the ad, and then send them cease and desist letters and demand 100% of their revenue from those campaigns, or I would litigate. And so my reputation as an affiliate was that I would actually do those types of things. And so I actually got checks from all the other affiliates who ran my face in their ad for 100% of their revenue. And so I just want to thank those affiliates, if they're still in the game, for shooting me those checks. I got to keep all the money without the cost. But this is also something that I talked about with one of the affiliates at my Mastermind, and they were saying that their pages were getting ripped off, that they had custom coded, and they were saying their ads would get ripped off by other affiliates. And my advice to them was to hire a lawyer, send demand letters, and collect all the money from essentially the copyright infringement of people stealing their campaigns. Because that's what this case is really about. Is the fact that if you do not have license to use an ad and you're stealing someone else's intellectual property by going to the Facebook ad library, downloading a video and putting it up on Facebook, you're violating their copyright. And those claims can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it only takes one person like me who's going to be like, hey, that's unacceptable. You stole my intellectual property. I'm going to come after you. And then you could be tied up in litigation. And so this is something that affiliates do all the time. They rip pages, they rip ads, and they just try and copy each other instead of putting in the work. And I think it's a very dangerous game to play because it only takes one person who understands what copyright law is to come after you. And that's what this girl did. And more power to her. Someone stole her ads, basically her own likeness, used it in a way that was unauthorized, and she's going to win this suit, or she's going to get a big old settlement because everyone violated
jump
her
in there.
likeness.
It seems like whomever the legal at Aveen was lazy, and more specifically the agency that Aveen hired just didn't have their ducks in a row regarding the publicity clearing rights across all channels. I mean, if I was Aveen, I'd be suing them too. I'd be suing the agency as well, because my guess is Aveen didn't have a clue that they were only allowed to use this on one thing. That's a huge company, and it's such a screw up. If I was Aveen, the client of the agency, I signed an agreement with them to find me models to generate content for me. I have a feeling the agreement that they have with the agency doesn't say that this post is only allowed to be used on, one single Instagram post or whatever. So
it probably says that the agency will create content that Aveen can use and then do the advertising with it. And that it probably has nothing to do with the individual rights. And so at the end of the day,
this is just sloppiness on that agency. And I would be so pissed if I was the person at the agency that did this deal because my legal let me down. And I'd also be beyond pissed if I'm the person in the marketing team on Aveen that chose this agency and signed an agreement and paid them probably hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars to do work, because now you have to clean up a shit legal mess. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess I'm hosting this podcast.
Were you making coffee again?
No, I'm here. I just never want to
Best host in the world.
Listen,
Josh,
what?
How long do you think we're going to let you keep doing this?
We're 30.
We're trying to make the best podcast that exists in the industry. You're not really helping.
I think we set
Amanda,
a new record.
Listen,
Amanda, it's okay.
Open-minded. If you wanted to start hosting the podcast, I think it would be amazing. 35 plus minutes in before the topic of me getting fired came up. I think this is a new record. And, as long as I keep up.
Kudos to you, Josh. You beat the last record of 4 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I guess we have somebody tracking that. Amanda, I want to go back to LinkUnite real quick. I opened the show by calling it the most badass organization of women executives in the industry. But for anyone who's unfamiliar with LinkUnite, especially those female audience and viewers watching the episode, what is LinkUnite and what is the most important takeaways from the organization?
Absolutely. So essentially what we like to call it is a movement, less of just an organization or a company. But what we're really trying to do is change the industry in the way that we think about relationships and growth. So we bring together, like I kind of, covered a little bit earlier, but director, VP level up individuals, but really focusing on female founders, CEOs, COOs in the industry, bringing them together and allowing them to sort of learn from each other. So we cover a vast array of different verticals, different software applications, technology platforms, anything from fintech to tracking, whatever it might be. And the idea is to allow them to really coalesce in the same environment and learn from each other about new technology applications. And then obviously that lends itself to company growth, revenue growth. So there's going to be sale opportunities there. There's going to be, the ability to share books of businesses. But in the real, I think, movement essence of it, the idea is to let them form bonds and really find a center with people who think like them. So it's a very unique mind, when you get to a certain level in your career that thinks like you do, that's very, focused on goals and applications moving forward. So when you put those types of women together, the way that they feed off of one another in terms of just understanding family dynamics, what it's like to be on the road at 22 shows a year with kids back at home, or, maybe some of them are going through fertility treatments, whatever it might be, but just having another person that understands where you're coming from in that same type of environment is just, it's nice to be able to call someone who speaks your language It can help you negotiate a salary or negotiate a particular contract with a new partner that you might be working with. So it's sort of a multifold and multifaceted movement. And then we just launched our mentorship program a couple of weeks ago as well. So we want to take all the OGs from the space that have been doing this for about 15, 20, 30 years for some even, and take that knowledge and really pass it to the next generation so that it's not lost, and that there is just, accelerated growth for that next generation within this space. We really want this to be, the home to everyone for women as much as they want it to be, or whatever they, choose to do in the future. So.
What's the breakdown of men versus women in the industry? I think that's a really important statistic, and
Right.
I think it underlines why LinkUnite is so important.
Right. And so don't quote me on specifics here, but the last time I've read several articles online, it was somewhere between 6 to 10%. I'm guessing it's somewhere right in the middle because, when you have standard deviation there, around 8%, it's probably women. That is specific to performance marketing. So it's a very niche part of digital marketing. Within the marketing world itself, it actually relatively is a larger female-dominated industry. But when you get into the digital space, it narrows down very, very quickly. And then when you add in that tech component to it, it gets even smaller. I was the only woman at my company for, several years. And I think a lot of people share that experience. And when we go to trade shows, there's quite a few of us because, they send us out to go do our very social, I would say dance, as it were. It's a terrible way to put it, but we're put out in the forefront because we are good with people. We are people centric, and so it's very easy to sort of see that as representation. But when you go home, you're in a company full of guys. Our next phase of
Well,
this,
I'm curious. I'm curious about that because I don't think I think like the normal leader in the space. I'm a little different, but I would really like to understand the female perspective on this. Like some of our best talent at Ringba is our women. I would be lost without them. And so maybe you could help me understand why it's so hard for women to find their place in performance marketing. I mean that genuinely, like help our listeners understand, because I would like to see more women in the industry. They're some of the smartest people that exist in at least our company. So yeah, help me with this.
Definitely. So I would say it's multifaceted. It's education that our industry even exists. Like when I first started, I didn't even know what an affiliate was when I was interviewing with Mo way back in the day. So I think it's really just, I think Sarah had a clip in one of our, podcasts we did a couple months ago saying, she went to a group of young college kids and she just asked them, like, does anyone know what performance marketing is? And no one raised their hands. And these are communications majors, right? So like we are just not educated in it. And so I think, when you add in that technology component, because there is a little bit of a technology brain that comes along with digital marketing. You have to understand Google in some capacity or a tracking platform, a relatively basic understanding, but still it is there. And I think that sometimes they feel, if they don't understand it or if they don't have that mentor relationship, someone that can really help them understand it, it's harder for them to come in. And if they do come in, we see that there's a large churn rate between that 6-month and 18-month sort of window. And that's what we're trying to close the gap with the mentorship program, or just even having this network of women that they can reach out to, is say, hey, if you don't understand something, hey, it takes a year to even understand some pieces of software in this space. You're not the only one. And we're here to help you understand that, or set up a campaign, or understand what posting specs are, whatever, as simple as it sounds to us, it's really not for someone who's new to the space. So that's bringing in the next piece of it. And I think that getting them to stay is opportunity. So when they are at a company, what is the next step? And if that's not clearly lined out, which it not always is at a startup, having them be part of that vision and growth is also the piece, that's sort of missing sometimes. But I think we are definitely changing quickly, and we have and love our allies and partners in the space. And I think people do see that as long as there's transparency about what the next steps are, or just understanding where a company is going, that we keep women in those spaces a lot longer, so they don't feel they have to go back to, another, industry, or have a fallback career, so to say.
I think that some of these companies in the space don't understand truly what they're missing. So like at Ringba, we don't run ads. And so this is less important. But at most of the lead generation companies in the space, half their audience is female. but like you said, 90% of their staff is male. That means 90% of the ads that are getting written that target female audiences are being written by men. And those insight, like, we're terrible at understanding women. And so to write ad copy that targets women specifically is a huge opportunity. And to do that, you need to understand your audience. No one better understands the female audience than a female. And so I see this as, for us, a competitive advantage, but for other companies, it always makes me wonder, like, what are they thinking? If you're marketing to these people, you don't have the talent on staff to understand your audience. It just seems like a giant glaring mistake for me. And it just seems so obvious.
I completely agree. I think that it's an oversight, because diversification, at least in thought process ideas, or even just the review process of some of these ads, especially for the networks, is absolutely key. And it can make or break certain campaigns. And when you have the spending power, it's not necessarily 50-50. I think that there is some, economic piece there in terms of statistics, but there is a large spending demand, especially for women. So having a woman's eye review an ad, or even just the way that they think about a campaign setup or a creative, outlet, or setting up an offer, can always be beneficial. Like you said, I think to any company, it's also just finding these women. Like, it's education is the fundamental piece of this. This is an industry that does exist. Come over here and learn, with us. And I think that's sort of the first piece of a lot of this, is finding a new generation.
Yeah, and I just want to apologize for referring to it as an organization. I agree it 100% is a movement, and I'm happy to see that it has such a presence in our industry now. I did have a question, and I hope you didn't already talk about this, because then I'm for sure getting fired as the host.
Well, I was going to say, we're adding the
Are you not
mislabeling
listening?
to the disciplinary chart.
No, I wanted to know, was there a specific event that occurred where you went home after a show and you were like, we need to put this together, because this shit is not cool, or it's missing, the industry is missing this? Did something specific occur that led to the foundation of this?
Yeah, so it's not such a tragic story. It was more of, I was in the industry for about 6 or 7 years, and I had gone to Sarah Mela, who is my business partner in this venture, in this movement, and essentially was like, hey, are there any resources for women that once you reach a certain level, that we can network, or just have, even when Adam's trying to do mastermind classes, something that just kind of gives me an idea of what the evolution looks like of the industry. And there was nothing for, executive women. Essentially, there are organizations that bring everyone together. And I think that there is benefit for AEs and AMs in those roles in that, but there's also a next level of what is the industry doing? Where are we going? And there was nothing really that resembled that in this particular industry outside of WIT for technology, portion of it. And so we were sitting down at the bar in Boston at LeadsCon, I think, one year, and writing down names on a napkin with Debbie Conrad and Joel from her team back in the day, just saying all right, if we're going to put a group together, which I basically just told Sarah, I was like, well, if no one else is going to do it, we're going to do it. Essentially, that's how this started, was, just sitting, writing names on napkins. I wish I still had that, just for nostalgic sake. But it was just going through and hey, who do you know? Who do you know? And through that, we organically built this wonderful network of vetted people that were loved in the industry. And we have the on-site events. We had 2 last year in Scottsdale, Arizona at the Mauna Lucia. And then we had the Marco Island one back in December.
So what's next for LinkUnite? How do you guys keep it growing? What are some of the future events you have in store, and anything in terms of what you want all of our viewers, especially the female audience out there, to know about the future of this movement?
Yes, we're going to have one large event this year and focus on really doing some other smaller initiatives as well. So we'll have some co-ed events where we bring our wonderful partners together with the women's, kind of like a Sadie Hawkins style event. So they actually get to meet one another and network with our, because again, we have our partners and our allies. So we're focusing on some diversification of event ideas this year. Really working with our partners and listening to their feedback is how we're sort of determining the next steps in terms of what is really going to be beneficial. Adam and Harrison have been very helpful in that way as well. So just sitting down and really understanding what would be the best next step for us. But we're really focusing on coming together around September for our next large actual LinkUnite gathering, and then doing these other educational components and smaller events throughout the year, piggybacked on all the other events, just like we always do, as it were. But that's, the idea is sort of just kind of adding in that educational component, I think, is what's the next key piece for us, and really grabbing that next generation and putting them with the older generation.
And hosting LinkUnite events is so much fun, Josh, because I don't get to go to my own party. It's super cool.
That's why we do the Sadie Hawkins now. We have to bring our partners together to meet one another.
Harrison and I tricked them at the LinkUnite event, Josh. We worked the lobby and walked the ladies up to the party. So we got to meet them all and say hello at least.
It was great to meet all of the group for sure. I loved it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's your favorite kind of event. You don't even have to go to it. It's like a perfect pairing for a sponsorship.
It's my favorite party.
Amanda, you need to do some awards so we can win an award for another event we don't show up to.
Adding it to the list right now.
Amanda, I feel like we should give you an award for being such a fantastic guest on the Affiliate Marketing Show. I just want to say thank you. For talking about all the topics, giving us a full rundown of LinkUnite. Usually I hand the floor back to you to tell us about LinkUnite. We just did that, but anything else you want our viewers to know about you, the organization, or anything at this time?
For me, it's just, come see us and come find Sarah and I any way that you want to outreach. We live on Skype like every other person in the industry, LinkedIn, text messaging, call us. We really are just looking for feedback, partners, any referrals that people have, find us. We're always available. And I really just want to say thank you to you guys for having me on. And we love Adam and Harrison. They're two of our favorite partners, and we can't wait to see what we do with you guys. And Josh, thanks for having me on.
And real quick, Josh, before you close the show, I want to talk to all the listeners out there. If you are not financially supporting LinkUnite, you are making a huge fucking mistake. These are the most badass women in the industry. And if you're not going to help them grow their organization, that is probably the biggest mistake you can make. And so I highly recommend that everyone pull out their checkbook and write checks to LinkUnite immediately.
Woo!
Otherwise, yeah, that's where it's at.
You're fucking up.
Love you.
Well, for Amanda from LinkUnite, Adam from Ringba, Harrison, as well as myself, Josh from OfferVault.com, let's make that paper. Let's make that dough. This was the Affiliate Marketing Show. We will see you next week.
Affiliate marketing